A while back, I did a video on Tony Danza's apartment, which taught me two things. There are more people interested in Tony Danza's life than I previously thought possible, and that Tony Danza owns multiple properties and is not spending all of his time in a rather modest Manhattan apartment. But this is not an attempt to further capitalize on that video, although Tony, if you're out there, know that a lot of people love you, and one at least would love to have a bagel and coffee sometime. What I want to talk about is Tony's relationship with Frank Sinatra. The story goes something like this. Tony wanted Frank as a guest on Who's the Boss and managed to secure him for an episode in 1989. The joke that you'll find most often that Tony relates in his cabaret show and many interviews is that he cautioned everyone on set about Frank's notorious temper and only doing one take. Then after a scene, Frank asked to do another take. It makes for a nice cabaret joke about not truly knowing your idols until you meet them. But there's more to the story. After the episode, a friendship developed between Tony and Frank. They hung out, had dinner, drank until 2 a.m., Frank telling stories about the old days, and Tony, I'm assuming, just listening. The admiration of the character Tony on Who's the Boss was the same for the real Tony. He really was meeting someone he had looked up to since he was a child, an Italian-American kid from the outskirts of New York with dreams to make it big in the bright lights of Manhattan. His admiration of Frank seemed genuine and heartfelt, and apparently Tony was invited to the inner circle of Frank Sinatra. But, as there is often in these kinds of stories, there was a rift, a break point of the friendship, a betrayal of sorts. Apparently, Tony's betrayal was helping Frank steady himself walking down some stairs. Tony touched Frank's elbow and was met with an angry reaction. Quote, "Back off. What's your problem?" Unquote. In one version of the story, a confidant tells Tony to not worry about it. That's just Frank. In fact, that's the way that he talks to people that he loves the most. In another version, maybe the real version, or the more complete version, Tony calls Frank's office the next day and is told to never call back again. I don't know which is true. I was told the second version in a private message by someone who seemed to have some inside information. Regardless, let's assume that it's true. If that's the case, then Tony Danza is in a great deal of pain. He got too close to his idol only to be rejected in the most cruel way possible, to be recognized, seen by someone not as a fan but as a fellow entertainer, and then to be instantly unseen. It's the worst kind of rejection. In Who's the Boss, we are all Tony. Tony meeting Frank is us all meeting Frank. But Frank rejecting Tony, that can only be felt as a gut punch by one person, the real Tony Danza. But here's what I would say to Tony Danza over a bagel and coffee. Tony, you don't need Frank. Sure, he's part of your narrative, but only part. You met Ali and Liza Minnelli and worked alongside Andy Kaufman and starred in decades of successful television. People know you not for a character you played, but for who you are. It's a rare thing that only a handful of celebrities can achieve. But you have it, Tony. The power of being you. Sinatra was a legend, but he was also lonely, unapproachable. I could never meet Frank over a coffee and bagel, but we could all meet you, around the corner from that apartment, with the air fryer and the parquet floors, and the comfortable couch and the upright piano. And that's why you don't need Frank, because we all have, in some sense, Tony Danza.